understand these important texts, our channel is here to guide you. Join our growing community as we break down this key set book and delve into the rich world of African and biblical story. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all our lessons and discussions. So today we will be looking at Fathers of Nations as a compulsory text that is an essential part of the curriculum. Stick around, we will dive deep into the themes, characters, lessons in this powerful novel. Now at the end, I'll also cover some questions that you guys have asked in the comment section. You'll have a solid understanding of what makes Fathers of Nations so impactful. So don't miss out the discussion as on the key themes at the end of the session, of course. So what happens when the so-called Fathers of Nations, those powerful figures were meant to guide the future of the entire continent, are themselves deeply flawed, power-hungry and corrupt? What if the leaders entrusted with shaping the destiny of millions are interested in their own wealth and control than in people they serve? In Fathers of Nations, the reader is thrust into a world where the fate of Africa lies in the hands of leaders who are as broken as the systems they've created. As these leaders debate, fight, and bicker with no clear vision, a group of determined individuals, each with a tragic past and a sense of suffering, begins to push for real change. Can they overcome their personal losses and weight of history to bring about transformation in Africa? Keep watching and see how these people were able to overcome their personal losses, weights of history, and brought transformation to Africa that so desperately needed. Now, at first glance, the title Fathers of Nations suggests great leaders, champions who fight for their people's well-being and national progress. But in this novel, the title takes a satirical twist. It asks for critical questions. Questions like, are the leaders that we chose become a symbol of togetherness or a symbol of stagnation and corruption? In many African states, figures like presidents are the leaders of nations for their role in leading in their country and championing independence. Yet, Paul Vita shows these figures often fall short of their duties. Are these leaders truly deserving of such a revered title? Or have they become symbols of stagnation and corruption? In many African states, figures like presidents are given the status of Fathers of Nations for their role in leading the countries in championing independence. But yet, Paul Vita shows these figures often fall short of their duties. The story begins in Banjul, the capital of Gambia, where 50 heads of states from across Africa gather for a critical summit. Now let's look at these four men. Professor Karanja Kimani from Kenya, once a respected academic. Kimani's life was shattered by personal tragedy. His wife, Asia Omondi, left him for a former colleague who became a corrupt politician, a symbol of everything that went wrong in their society. On top of his betrayal, Kimani lost his beloved daughter Tuni in a tragic accident. These painful experiences have pushed him to fight for a better future, one that isn't ruled by the same corruption that took everything from him. He's a man broken by loss, yet determined to make a difference for his country and generations to come. Next, we have Comrade Gombile Melusi, Zimbabwe. Melusi was once a full of hope and promising leader, believing that he could lead Zimbabwe to a brighter future. But his dreams were crushed when a new regime came to power, and with it, violence and cruelty. His wife Ziliza was killed in a brutal massacre ordered by the leader of the country. The Ndebele people, whom Melusi cared for, were ruthlessly oppressed, leaving him with nothing but anger and sorrow. Yet, his anger also fuels his determination to resist the regime and fight for the freedom of his people. His journey is one of pain, loss, and unyielding desire to make a stand against injustice. Next, we have engineer Saif Tahir, Libya. Saif Tahir, who was once a brilliant and respected engineer specializing in nuclear technology. But when he spoke out against the tyranny in his country, he was exiled, forced to leave behind the work he loved and the life he had built. Though he was punished for his courage, Saif Tahir remains determined to find a way to break the political and economic chains that are suffocating Africa. His intelligence and experience gives him the power to help, but it is the pain of his exile and desire for justice that drives him to seek solution. He is a man of reason trying to bring order in a world that has fallen into chaos. Last, we have Pastor Chineke Chiamaka from Nigeria. Pastor Chiamaka is a brave preacher who speaks out against the corruption in the government. His powerful sermons calling for justice and honesty to his imprisonment and the government banning his ministry. Despite the hardships he had faced, Chiamaka has remained strong, and his faith and hope makes him a symbol of moral integrity. Even though he has been silenced by the authorities, his messages continue to inspire others to stand up for what is right. Now let's leave this for and go direct to the summit. Inside the Pinnacle Hotel where the summit takes place, chaos and disorder fill the room. Now, the leaders gathered there have held their power for many years, and it shows. They seem disconnected from reality and show little care to the people they are supposed to represent. Instead of working together, they argue, show off, and try to undo each other. There is no plan or clear path for the future. President Didier Bangaura is in charge of leading the summit, but he is old and forgetful. He often looks lost, unable to focus or make strong decisions. Next to him sits King Jemba Jemba IV, who holds his head high, proud of his lifelong rule. But his pride does not come with real ideas or action. He's just there to be seen, not to help or bring any change. President Wasiwasi Wesinga is another important figure at the meeting. He is famous for not helping his people, but taking power through many coups. His presence reminds everyone of the corrupt government he has been running that has kept Africa from moving forward. This is the kind of behavior that Path Alpha, a plan of change, wants to end. In this room full of leaders who cares about power and themselves than their countries, it has become clear why progress is so hard. The scene at the summit shows just how lost and broken leadership in Africa has become. We have two ideologies, the Omega and Path Alpha. The Omega is the favored plan for many leaders. It is a promise of continued foreign aid and comfort, preserving the power structures that keep these leaders in control. Minister Zinto As the summit continues, confusion reigns until President Bangaura announces the formation of a method committee to bring between these two strategies. Bangaura's age and inability to are evident as he attempts to make decisions using simplistic method like tossing a coin. In the climatic twist, the advocates of Path Alpha, Dr. Afolabi, and the protagonists succeed in presenting their case. Despite corruption and resistance, Path Alpha is chosen, symbolizing a moment of hope and change. Now, Fathers of Nations tells the story of a troubled Africa through humor and irony. The book makes leaders think deeply about the problems that African countries still face after gaining independence. The story highlights issues like poor leadership, poverty after gaining independence. The story highlights issues like poor leadership, poverty, corruption, betrayal, and difficult lives of women. It also talks about hope for change. Now, I'll be posting videos on these themes, question and answers of Fathers of Nations. I'll also be updating at different parts of Fathers of Nations chapter-wise. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on these videos. Now, on this poor leadership, the leaders in this story lost and cannot guide their countries. They hold important jobs but seem confused, lazy and selfish. They don't trust each other and are not honest. They care more about power and their own comfort than about the people they are supposed to be helping. This leads to lack of growth and makes things worse for everyone. Poverty. The book shows how many African countries struggle with poverty. These countries are tied down by heavy debts they owe to foreign banks and powerful nations. This debt stops them from growing and moving forward. In the story, Professor Kimani wives leaves him for a rich politician because of money, showing how corrupt, wealth and inequality tears apart the relationship. In fact, Kimani says that thinks that Walomu is a fool who have been bribed by fools like him. Corruption and betrayal. The character in the book, all the characters have been hurt by corruption of politicians. Saif Tahir lost his job because of a corrupt government. Comrade Melusi lost his wife in a violent attack. These tragic events reveal how actions of corrupt politicians cause pain and suffering. The politicians who are supposed to be helping their countries actually hurt them by stealing and lying. The work also touches on how leaders fail to meet the hopes of their people, drawing attention on Path Alpha as a vision of change and rooted in solidarity, self-reliance and justice. This can be shown clearly. Keep watching as we break down more lessons from Fathers of Nation. Remember guys, like, share and subscribe. Now, we will be diving into some questions that you guys have posted, and that will be our next clip. Now, here are some of the burning questions that you guys have been dropping. And I'll start by this guy. The guy asked, what is the main vibe of Fathers of Nation? I think by vibe he means message. What is the main vibe of Fathers of Nation? I mean, the main message of Fathers of Nation is to criticize the African leadership, because the leaders that Africans has chosen have decided for themselves that they just don't want to work. They are always self-serving and disconnected from the people who have elected them into place. They always promise but they don't deliver, especially the promises that they gave during the information. I think the message also is the struggle that the individuals caught up in the corruption system face. Those people who are forced to bribe, those people, I mean, how corrupt the government really is. It also signifies, there's also a message of hope and change at the end of the book, where we find that Path Alpha comes to win. There we can see a lot of change and hopes for Africa, because now we have a strategy that is meant to help Africans grow their continent. And again, there is this person who asks, does Fathers of Nation portray what is happening in Africa? Does Fathers of Nation mirror what is happening in Africa right now? I mean, the person who asked this question, I already know he's not an African, because if he were here, you will see poor leadership, corruption, poor decision making. I mean, everything about this book is what we face day to day. We have seen people like King Jemba Jemba here, people who hold power for decades and decades. Here in Kenya, we know a president who went for 24 good years. I mean, 24. In Uganda, elsewhere, we see people holding their seats for quite a long time. They hold power for decades, making decisions that hurt people. They don't care what the people will face after that. So, sadly, as Africans, we still have to face these challenges daily. Yeah, that's the sad truth. As someone says, I cannot seem to find the theme of corruption in the book. Some of you think that corruption is where a driver or a conductor of a matatu gives money to a police officer by the road. That is not the only form of corruption, and I mean, this topic is most likely to be tested because it is very wide. Corruption does not just consist of a change of money, hand-to-hand change of money. Even the fact that Wasiwasi Wisinga has been staging coups after coups and taking over government, that is a form of corruption. Bribery is a form of corruption. Stealing public funds is a form of corruption. So, yeah, just wanted to make that clear. How do major losses the characters face shape what they do and how they move in the story? Personal losses of people like Professor Karanja Kimani, whose wife was snatched by an MP who was his colleague. I mean, that really pushes Kimani to the limits because he loved his wife so much, and he's forced to work so hard to make sure that this government is listens to his views. Look at something like Melusi, whose wife was killed in a massacre. He sees his people being mistreated every day. I mean, these challenges make them have the urgency of wishing for change in Africa, change. Yeah, they really want to have that change so that they can at least find their way out. I think I need to do a video for Kimani, another for Melusi, so that I can give detailed information because I know them. Yeah, someone like Kimani, I can tell you every word that he ever said. Melusi the same, because we've been acting these things. I know how they go. So stay tuned, you guys. Remember to subscribe, like, share, and comment, and please like the video. It really helps in the algorithm. You know, you guys are not paying for this content. Yeah, I'm in the road to 100 subscribers, not 100k, 100, and I mean 100 subscribers. Yeah, at some point maybe you will view this video when I'm about 100k subscribers, but you remember this one. Anyway, you guys have a nice one. Forced to leave behind the work he had loved and the life he had built, though he was punished for his he was exiled, forced to leave behind the work he loved all his life, that he had built for his life.